Hey everybody, Josh Denbo, Consumer Protection Attorney. This is video 2 on the second mortgage foreclosure problems that we're all facing these days, or that I'm seeing cross my desk constantly these days. First video, which is linked below, explains why we got here, how we got here, why these foreclosures are being filed, what to do about it, and why they're just so unfair and inappropriate. The second video, this one, is what to do about it. Now, this is some fairly cutting edge legal argument, which has not been fully fleshed out as far as I'm aware in any jurisdiction. I'm certain it's going to work. I'm fairly certain it's going to work because judges get to make the call, and sometimes they're right and sometimes they're morons, and it's just how the system works. But this is sort of how the sausage is made in the consumer protection field on how to deal with new abuses by the financial industry. Okay, so here we go. There's a $50,000 second mortgage given as a liar loan from the start of the origination of the original first mortgage when the house was purchased, refinanced, or whatever we're going to do with the origination of the loan. $50,000 loan. Mortgage statements are maybe never sent or sent for 6 months, and then they stop. 13 years later, their first mortgage is on time. Some servicer comes along and says, oh, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, guess what? I filed a foreclosure complaint to take your house because you owe me $95,000 on a $50,000 second mortgage that you never paid. And a lot of attorneys are going to look at this and say, well, I guess you do owe the money. You probably don't. Well, don't get me wrong. You owe the 50. Hard to get around that. Did borrow the money. Owe the 50. But the 95? Almost certainly not. Here's why. The Truth in Lending Act requires a mortgage servicer to send monthly statements every month. And if they don't send the monthly statements every month, they're not allowed to collect interest. That's number one. That's why you don't owe the other $45,000, almost certainly. And I say almost certainly because, like I said, this is new law. While that law is fairly clear, judges haven't seen it very often, so it's going to be a fight to get this. But taking that argument to the next level, you don't owe the additional $45,000, and yet a debt collector is trying to collect it from you. That's an attempt to collect a debt that is not owed. That's a violation of the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act that makes both the debt collector and the attorney debt collector personally liable for bad faith debt collection. What does that get you? Gets your attorney's fees paid, pretty big deal. And it gets you damages, whatever those may be. If they actually got you to pay some of the interest, those might be damages. It's a very good leverage for getting attorneys interested in these cases because they can take cases in which an attorney is assured or somewhat assured to get paid at the end of the day, even if the consumer doesn't have the funds to pay. Now, I want to be clear. It's a new area of the law. Once this gets fleshed out, maybe we're going to see more contingency cases. I don't take these cases on a contingency because it's a new area of the law. What I've just laid out for you is a legal framework that we're pursuing and will continue to pursue to demonstrate the viability of the law. Once that's demonstrated, yeah, I could probably do more contingency work. Until then, it's got to be hourly, unfortunately. So there's a third argument here too, but it only applies when the second mortgage is a fixed loan and not a home equity line of credit, known as a HELOC. HELOCs are not covered by RESPA, and I've got other videos on RESPA, and you can go elsewhere to learn about RESPA, although it'll probably be full of baloney. But a fixed rate second mortgage, not a undefined loan term like a HELOC, is covered by RESPA, and the attempt to collect the debt that's not owed could be subject to a notice of error. And if it doesn't get fixed, you might have a RESPA claim. What does that get you? It doesn't get you a lot more than the Truth in Lending and the FDCPA. And both of those award counsel fees, although there are questions as to whether an affirmative defense under TILA will get you attorney's fees, which is why the FDCPA is kind of important and why RESPA might be kind of important. So can you get out from under? Yes. Of the additional interest? Almost certainly. Can you bring a claim against the collector? Yes, almost certainly. And there's a follow-up argument that is very difficult to state clearly without getting people all excited on the produce the note defense and this guy doesn't own my mortgage and all that kind of stuff. Because there's too much of that on the internet and people believe it too much. And these first mortgages, this argument that the plaintiff doesn't own my loan is a waste of money and time. The industry is too sophisticated and clear, and they've gotten that problem fixed. Don't buy that nonsense from someone on the internet saying, my first mortgage is not owned by the company that's suing me. It is. But the second mortgages that disappeared for years, there's often a very big question as to who owns the loan. And you need to find an expert, an actual expert, who can search through the records available online to find where that loan was sold from the origination and to get an expert report. And if you could find that expert, and if you can get that report, or your attorney can, because that's how it has to happen. It has to happen through counsel. Then you might also have an argument that the plaintiff suing you doesn't have a right to sue, and you don't owe the plaintiff that money, which might get you out from under the $50,000. So there is a lot out there. It's an undefined, unsettled area of the law that I am eagerly prosecuting. I can connect people to some states around the country that have attorneys that might be interested in chasing this stuff down. If you're in New Jersey, I'm definitely interested in talking to you, but this really isn't about generating business. This is about creating a new business line for consumer protection attorneys to find ways to protect consumers. And that's what I love doing, finding new areas of the law, new ways to use existing legal framework to screw the financial industry that's running around screwing you and me and everybody else. All right? So that's video 2. Hope it's helpful. I know it's a lot.